Hello there. Welcome to Creator Mass 2019. And for those that are new to all of this, Creator Mass is a IMVU creator event, if you like, where we go through the process of making things for IMVU that are themed towards Christmas. And today, which is the first day of Creator Mass 2019, thank you, Polly, is to recreate or remake these bows that we made last year. And we're going to remake those in Blender 2.8. Well, it'll be 2.81. We're going to remake them. Very simple product to make, or very simple meshes to make. And because they're low poly, so they don't have a lot of structure, they're very simple meshes. It means that they can be used, well, they can be spammed all over the place. So what we're going to do is take a look at making these simple shapes in 2.8. So let's get started. First I need to open up Blender 2.8. So if you haven't got Blender, go to blender.org. Type that in the chat. Okay, I've got it. I know the chat rules. Thank you very much. Blender.org. And then just go to download. And that you'll be able to download the latest version of Blender, which is 2.81. So this is 2.81. So I guess we could probably do a recap. So comparing the two, basically not a lot has changed in terms of the functionality of the program. So this is Blender 2.79 where the bows are already open, and this is Blender 2.8 plus. So we've still got the same controls. So that's the middle mouse button. If you hold that, it'll rotate the scene. If you shift click middle mouse, it strafes, or what's the word, translates. And then if you hold control down, it'll zoom. So those are the same as they are for Blender. So middle mouse, Blender 2.79, so middle mouse, shift middle mouse, and control middle mouse. For Blender 2.8 though, we've got this little manipulation widget tool in the corner. So if you find using the mouse tricky, because you might not even have a middle mouse button, there are two button mices. Just click drag. Oh, I need the zoom it. Make this easier. So that's the scene transformation widget. So that allows us to rotate, and you can click on the spots, and that will take you to the cardinal axes. And then we've also got zoom, so left click drag, and pan or translate. Oops, where's it gone? So these are helpful if you find using the middle mouse button tricky. Everything else is pretty much the same. So selecting objects, clicking your properties is middle left click. So those are all still the same. But the buttons and the interface has changed slightly. So all of these properties and buttons that we see in the panels. Why isn't that closed? Whoops. So all the tool shelf and the view properties stuff is now a toolbar where we have separate icons, and the tool shelf, which is broken down into several panels. But they all work the same way, so if you're used to Blender 2.79, you should be okay with 2.8. So let's make some bows. And all we need for this is some very simple shapes. So what we're going to do is use the cube primitive. Switch to edit mode. So that's our context switcher. Edit mode. And then what we can do with this, switch to whoops. So we've got our element selection, so that's vertexes, edges, faces. So we want faces. Just select 3 of these, so that's shift click. Oh, there is one difference with Blender 2.8. When you start it for the first time, it will give you a mouse setup screen or overlay, where you can set left click or right click as your default selection. So depending on how you've got that set up, selecting elements will be a left click or right click. And then selecting multiples will be shift, whatever your click is set up to be. So click those, and we want to delete them. Mesh, delete. Faces, and that gives us a C shape. Edge select, and then we can switch to our manipulation widgets. So we've got move, rotate, scale, and then universal, so that contains all of them. And we can begin to make a bow shape, and all it is essentially a deformed C shape. So drag one edge down from the where it was from the top and create that shape. And what we can do is add a loop cut. So that's the loop cut tool. Or if you know the shortcut, that's Control R, and it'll do the same thing. The only difference with Blender 2.8 is that the shortcuts don't activate the tool, and the only way to activate the tool or deactivate it once it's been used is to click one of the widgets. Not sure if that's a design feature or whether that's something that's been overlooked, because you should be able to just click the tool to activate it and click it again to deactivate it, but that doesn't happen, so you have to click one of the widgets. So loop cut, I'm just going to add a cut there, so that's our indicator that tells us which orientation the cut will take. So a horizontal edge will result in a vertical cut, a vertical edge will result in a horizontal cut, because you're actually splitting the edge. So we just want the one. Switch to move, and then we can do a little bit of shaping. can switch to Vertex. And there is a very simple and very basic shape. So what we can do with this now is add a bit more detail to it. So loop cut again. Just the one. And then another one. Rotate. That's a bit steep. That is a basic ribbon, or the bow element of the ribbon. So what we can do with this now, exit edit mode, whoops, object mode, and we can duplicate this. Duplicate linked. Right click to release, and then we can mirror that. So that's Control M, or mirror, is it X? Yeah, X. And put these into position. And that means duplicating linked means that if we edit one of them, it automatically updates the other. Oops. So let's check the position of those. So need to make a little bit of room, because so how did we do that before? So let's have a look at the old file. Right, so what we're doing here then is adding a box, add mesh cube, scaling that down, taking the bottom off, so delete, shrinking that down a little bit, then adding some loop cuts so that we can make it a little rounder. So just the two. Scale. Yeah, that looks about right. So what we can do now is modify the bow or the ribbon bit. So it's not quite as severe. And that's modifying the duplicate that's on the other side. So we only need to modify one. So make sure these ends intersect the box that's in the middle, because we don't want any gaps. We can change this and make it smaller, or height-wise. Whoops. Maybe even so the one thing that you have to watch out for with duplicating, although these two meshes are duplicates of one another, so whatever is done to one is immediately reflected in the duplicate. That only happens in edit mode. In object mode, or as objects, they can be positioned independently. So even though they are linked, so let's just move that to one side. Even though they are linked, they can be positioned as objects independent of one another. So you need to be careful that, let's get this positioned more. So let's say, for the sake of argument, you had one that was clipping into a section of a mesh like that. You have to be careful excuse me, you have to be careful not to think or not to assume that that's an issue with the mesh as a mesh, instead of it being an issue of an object, the position of the object, not the structure of the mesh. And there is a very simple bow. So next thing to do, we need to do to this is object, shade smooth, object, shade smooth. So that makes everything look nice and organic. So in how many faces is that? So down in the bottom right corner, we have all the information to do with the scene. And at the moment, this is 35 vertices, 22 faces, and 44 tris. So a tris is a triangle. So that's a quad, and there are lots of those. A tris, or a triangle, is the quad broken down into its basic components, and that is 2 triangles, or triangles, depending on how many, because there are that shape. It's called an n-gon as opposed to a polygon or a quad, but that's comprised of 3 triangles, whereas a quad just has 2. And of course that center edge can be oriented in different ways depending on the structure of the object. So this is only 44 tris, which means it could be spammed all over the place. So let's save this file, save as, and here is the new file browser. So where do we want to put this? Accessories, Blender 2.8, and we call this Bose 2019. Save as. So that's saved the file. So the next thing to do is add materials. Now in the old version, you could apply UV image editor. You could apply an image directly to your object as long as it had a UV map, and it would appear in the 3D view. That's not the case anymore. So that's the UV map for that. This is not the case anymore. In Blender 2.8 we have to have a material in order for the texture, or in order for the object to appear textured in the main 3D view. So if we switch to this is now called Material Preview and or rendered, we'll just get the default material color, whatever that is. It's supposed to be white, but that's the default. So in order for the texture to appear, so let's try this. So that's the default UV map that's assigned to the cube by default when they are, well, it's not just the cube, but all the shapes. So the UV sphere, the plane, each one of these gets a UV map automatically generated when it's dropped into the scene. So what we can do, open. So let's find the ribbons. Where are they? Nope. 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 I was just looking at them. on earth did they go? This is why you should organize your projects properly. Because it makes it easier to find. So I'm just looking through Windows File Explorer off screen, trying to find the textures that we used last year. Oh, there they are. So they're in furniture. So where's furniture? Furniture. It's not that one. What is it? Oh, there they are. Dull. So select, open the image. Right, so ordinarily, if you do this in Blender 2.79, so what we've done there is applied the image directly to the UV map that's on the object. Yeah, in 2.79 you can do that and it will appear, but because we're using Blender Render, which is now obsolete, so even though the object has a UV map and the texture has been assigned to that UV map, it does not appear in the 3D view, because the 3D view or the rendering capabilities of Blender in 2.8 have changed, so that no longer works. So what we have to do now is set up a proper material, even though it's just a basic one, that references the image that's going to be mapped to the object, which will then make it appear. So in shading workspace, the object already had a material assigned to it, so let's click the other one. Right, so that doesn't have anything. Okay, so in material properties, click new, and that will add a set of nodes down here in the node editor or the shader editor. Populates the panel with a set of properties. We need to change the name. So this bit is similar to or the same as for Blender 2.79, so this needs to be ribbon. And it'll be the same for the entire object, so ribbon square bracket 0, close square brackets. And that's our IMVU compatible material name. Let's get the preview open. Right, so, and all we need to do to this is from the add menu, texture, image texture, drop that into place, and then we can link color output to base color input. Click drag, and that connects the nodes. So nothing's happened at the moment other than it's going black, because that will be using the, I guess it'll be the emission color that's, whoops. Now because we loaded an image, that probably, yes, there it is. So big bow, if we assign that, it should appear on the object. So it's appeared, but it's not UV mapped properly, so the color is influencing the object, but it's not been UV mapped, so we'll have to do that. But selecting the bow, we can assign the same material, and it also appears on that now. So basically the difference significant difference between 7.9 and 8.0 is that we now have to have materials in place in order for images to appear in the 3D view. So let's unwrap this or fix the UV. So UV editing. And what we can do here is we can probably use that map. So select the whole thing. And we're going to use the widget. We've now got a widget. So this is the widget. And this will allow directional manipulation of the widget depending on which control element is clicked. So move the mouse over the edges or the nodes and we can do different types of manipulation. And if we watch what's happening on the mesh, we can see the texture. Being mapped. That was pretty straightforward. Select the center. That hasn't got a UV map. Oh, it has. It's got a basic one, so we need to just unwrap that again. Where's the rest of that gone? So select all, unwrap, there we go. And this little node at the top, that allows the UV to be rotated. And we can kind of just about see it. And the node in the middle, that allows it to be transformed. Vertexes. So which corner is that? Ah, so it's that bottom. It's this corner here. Whoops. So deselect. And there is our very basic ribbon. Let's get rid of shading. That's very shiny. There we go, just get rid of that. And that is a very simple ribbon made from simple shapes. Let's change this a little bit more. Wireframe, vertexes. Then we can use the box selection tools. Click hold and we'll get the fly out. Here is our bow. So let's save that. Save as. Two. So here's a tip for you. I think we did it to the yes, we did. So one of the disadvantages, it's not really a disadvantage, one of the things that you have to watch out for is that even though you may make your object relatively easy to derive from because of the way that the UVs are mapped, so what we've done is map the entire structure, whoops, so it automatically tiles the texture around the structures. One of the disadvantages of doing that is that it leaves the object looking rather flat. So we can enhance the shape of the object by using Vertex painting. So that's another context sensitive editing mode. And we get a number of tools, different brushes, but the painting stuff, the stuff to do with the colour, is in the, unless they've moved it again, in the sidebar. And we want tool, yes, and there it is. So this changes, this is a change or a difference from 2.79, because if we switch to, well, we're in Vertex paint mode. Vertex paint mode puts all the tools in the tool shelf on the left, whereas in Blender 2.80 all the colours and most of the stuff to do with the tools is on the right, and that's in what was View Properties. So this is our View Properties in 7.9, and that's the tool shelf. But all of that stuff that was in a tool shelf is now in the View Properties, or what was View Properties, on the right. So what we're going to do, use the colour picker, that's this section, and all we need to do is choose a darkened tone and just, did we select an object? Yes, we did. We selected the ribbon. So select the ribbon, Vertex paint, and then we can add. So you're just painting where the vertices are. They can be tricky to get to. So we can hide, use the outliner, and click the little eyeball icons as a way to quickly show and hide things. And depending on the speed of your computer, this may behave a little slow. So anywhere you expect there to be shading or shadow, just paint some colour. And if you use a grey, if you keep it to tones of grey, or between black and white, it means that, or it makes it easier for people to derive from your products, because when they replace, so if this was replaced with a blue texture, the darkened tones won't interfere with the color of the texture that they assign. So if you made these, let's say we made the color blue, and this would probably be more striking if you added a yellow texture. When you apply a texture to that, it's a different color. The color that you've used influences, so that would probably turn green. I guess it would be green. So the color that you use for your vertex colors will influence. Let's turn that to white to make sure we're on the grayscale and redo that. So that's one thing to keep in mind when creating derivables. Now, oh, that's the other thing. Let's double check this. Oh, it has done it. Not sure if this is an oversight with the development of Blender or something that's actually been designed as a feature. Vertex colors are only visible when you are in vertex paint mode. So switching back to vertex to object mode, we lose the vertex colors, so we can't see any of that data. So that is something to be mindful of when you are painting. Because that now looks as though the two bow bits aren't vertex painted, but they are, because we know they are, because we just did them. I wonder if you can vertex paint multiple. No, you can't. It only right, so it's only doing that on the active object. So yeah, don't know if that's a design feature or a design oversight. So let's save that, and then what we can do, whoops. What we can do is turn that into a little bow tie. So let's no, we won't need to do that. What we need now is a cylinder. Where's the 3D cursor gone? There it is. So we need to reset that. So 3D cursor location. Want that to be at the center of the screen. So that is the sidebar now. That's called the sidebar. Deselect our objects. We want to add a cylinder. Mesh. Cylinder. In the cylinder properties, reduce this down to I guess it'll be 8. Might need to correct that later. We don't need the cap. And that's alright, so rotate that 90 degrees. Make it bigger. Squash it down. Reposition. And we can apply the same material to this, and that may bring up an image. Some ribbon one. Yeah. Because the object has a UV map already assigned to it. I want to smooth that. Smooth shade. Right, save that. Save as. So what we can do now is join all of these bits together. So shift click, object, join. That joins everything together. So we've now got a single object. And then in object properties, we can rename this bow tie. Let's call it bow tie dot mesh. Don't need the dot mesh, it just makes it easy to see things in the next step. So save as. Right, so what we can do now we can load in the accessory file. So you can get those from hang on, need to get the URL for that. Where is the accessory file? Right, so drop this link into the chat. So you want to go to catsbits.com/codex/IMVU hyphen so IMVU starter files. But if you just go to catsbits.com/codex, you'll be able to find the link to the files. So drag and drop female accessory, open. So that's the female accessory file. What we're going to do now is append. So we need to browse to, there it is, number 5. Double click. And we want objects, double click. And there is our bowtie.mesh, so select and append. Now because of the size difference between IMVU and Blender, it looks as if nothing has happened. But it should be there because we have an object appearing in the outliner. We can also double check that. View, frame selected. And the view will zoom to the bow, which is probably inside. There it is. So that is our object. So all we need to do now is make that bigger. And we can do that with the scale widget. And out we go. Just make it big so that we can see it. And then we can position it. That's a massive bow tie. Oh, and it is 8. So that was quite... is it 8? Yeah. So what we've done, the cylinder that we placed is 8-sided because the mesh is also 8-sided, or it's roughly 8-sided. I think there are actually more. There's 10, but the way that the divisions are set out, it looks as though you can get away with 8. And what that basically avoids is mesh clipping. So if you don't match the structure that you are basically sitting on top of, whenever the avatar moves, you'll end up with some clipping where the underlying structure will clip through the overlying structure because the two don't match up. So we were quite lucky there. And all we need to do is position this where we want it to be, and we can do some editing. Let's make this a bit whilst we're in situ. So we've got the basic structure that we need for the object in the other file, but as we've imported it into this file, we can edit it further. And again, we don't necessarily have to make it symmetrical. So basically you can create the initial structure that you want in your actual project file, and then it can be modified in the avatar file. So let's add a bit of Vertex painting to the ribbon. So we need the tool. So we want to paint behind the bow so that that's darker. And then under the chin, so that's darker. Maybe a bit darker. And again, grayscale tones so that you don't cause problems for derivations. Close the sidebar, switch out of that. So that's our basic bow tie. So we can save this, save as. Bow tie 6. And then set this up as an accessory. So we want this to be so the closest accessory bones to this look to be let's hide the mesh for now. And these bones. So that's that one and that one. So we've got a choice. Neck 04, neck 03, neck 02 and neck 01. Neck 04 is generally used just for the top of the avatar's neck. Whoops. What did I do there? So where that join is, where the neck joins the head, that's usually attributed to neck 04. So the area below it is usually reserved for neck 03, and then below that we've got neck 02, and then below that we have neck 01, which is starting to get into the top of the spine and the clavicles. So the closest that we want is neck 03. So to make this an accessory, select your object, object data properties. We need to create a vertex group. So click the button, plus button, that creates a group. Double click and rename this attachment root. The name is case sensitive, so the A and the R are both uppercase. So that's a group, but we need to assign that to the mesh. So switch to edit mode, select all, and then click the assign button. And what that's doing is setting up attachment root to influence every vertex of the mesh. And then what we can do, exit edit mode, whoops, and we now need to assign a modifier. So modifiers, add modifier, and we want an armature. And for this, to make this easier, what we can do is hide the female avatar. So mesh selected, click the little dropper, and then click on the armature that we want to use. In this instance, that's object neck 03 brackets attachment root. So click that, and it automatically inserts it into the armature modifier. And we can test whether that was successful by selecting the armature, switching to pose mode. The bones will turn blue, and then what we can do is test this to see which bone. So undo that, click. Yeah, so we've got a bone now which is attachment root that's influencing the mesh. So that confirms the association. Switch out of object mode. And because this is a accessory, deselect everything. Oh, actually, before we export this, so save the file, save as. And then we can export. So file, export, FBX. That's fine. Right, so the settings, make sure selected object is disabled. Those are fine. Custom properties, that's fine. Transform, leave all of that. Geometry, apply modifiers, that can be left active. Armature, where's the oh, that's changed. Oh no, it hasn't. Right, so yeah, add leaf bones, disable that always. We don't need any animation, so deselect. I think I need to update the tutorial to include all of this because they've changed this now with the new file browser, which is what this is, this pop-up view. So selected objects, deselect. Apply modifiers, that's optional, and you can leave that. Armature, add leaf bones, always deselect. Bake animations we don't need, so those are okay. And then export. So IMVU, create mode, derive new product, female accessory, could be a male accessory as well, but female accessory, that's the glasses. So that's the default with the shades. And then to import, so we want FBX import, load FBX and browse to there it is, Bose 2019 number 7, open. This will give us a select skeleton root dialog. If we've done this right, it'll always pop up. And what we want always is to select the option that starts root node, and we can check that for accessories because that will always give us 2 bones and 1 mesh, assuming a standard accessory. In certain circumstances you can use the one that gives us 3 bones and 1 mesh, but it may cause issues, so always go with 2 bones, 1 mesh, starts with root node. So select that, we'll get our mesh, which it's picked up, configure, and for female accessories the mesh ID is 2. The ribbon, it's got that okay. Apply scale is always 0.01, and then import. Blah 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 blah. Blah blah blah. Import changes. And then apply changes. And our bow has been brought in, but it's attached to the head bone. So we now need to go to config tab. And that is neck 03 as the attachment node. And there is our bow. Way! So let's go to meshes and check. Get rid of those. Oh, we might need double-sided. Well, let's just disable that for now. Yeah, we want two-sided. But we can also add... Can't get closer to this. We can also enable vertex colors, and that should bring in the vertex colors we assigned or painted, and it has. It's made the center a little bit funky because our colors have gone a bit too dark, but we can adjust those. But that is if we can get closer to it without clipping. That is our bow tie. Nice. So save that. Create a mass 2019 bow tie. And then upload. So although that's taken an hour or so, just because of all the talking and explaining what things are, you should be able to get a bow made within a few minutes, because it is just a set of simple shapes. Yeah, we did save that, so that's okay. Whoops, wrong one. Because it's just a set of simple shapes. We just start with the cube. We just start with the cube. Add some loop cuts. So if we just so the original shape is basically a little more than that. Or let's just add so our ribbon starts from, get rid of that, from that basic shape, this C shape. So as long as that is your starting object, you can make your ribbon within a few minutes, in fact, because it's just some very simple manipulation. So although we kind of did it step by step, if you were just doing it for the sake of actually just getting it done, wrong one. That is your bow. So it's very simple. Duplicate that, fiddle with the shape a little bit, and you have your ribbon. And that's all it is. And that gets us, whoops, that gets us to that, which we can then import or append to the accessory file, which you can then export to IMVU. And because we're using FBX, we don't have to fiddle around with the orientation of the object. So we appended this in that orientation into the accessory file and repositioned it. We didn't have to do anything else other than just change its position and its rotation and do a little bit of tweaking to its size, and FBX will export that as is, and that's all we need. Don't need to do all the fiddling that we used to do with Cal 3D. So number 7, let's take a look at the Vertex painting colors. Yeah, so that's one thing you have to watch out for, is because the parts are separate, you have to be careful about the colors or the tones that you use to make sure that they are not too dark so you get too much of a difference between the Dagnabbit, why is that not painting? This is one of the tricky parts of using Vertex colors. Trying to paint something that's hidden inside another object. So let's see if we can hide that. So hide this, whoops, this structure, hide, and switch to Vertex. Yeah, so we can do that. Why does that look as if it's not painting? So this looks like it needs some improvement. That is crazy. This is the problem we use in Blender, because they keep changing things around. because not many people use Vertex painting anymore. So it's no longer a priority feature to include. So we don't want that to be as dark at the bottom, because that looked almost black. God, this is a bit of a struggle trying to get this painted. It's not quite as easy as it was in Blender 2.79. So see, even as master creators struggle with Blender sometimes. So there is that. There has to be a way of let's try that. Nope, that doesn't seem to do anything. Right, okay, so we've tweaked that a little bit. So let's re-export that. So save the file because we've done some different changes. Number 8. Who would have thought an hour and a half on a bow tie? Deselect everything. Then export. Export. FBX. Deselect. That's okay. That's okay. Deselect. So that's number 8. Export FBX. So IMVU. Create a new project. So for those that don't know, you can create as many local projects as you want. You only pay for it when you upload. So let's do that again. FBX import, load FBX, and number 8, open. 2 bones, 1 mesh. Configure. Mesh ID 2. apply scale 0.01, ribbon, import. Right, so what that's actually telling us, let's have a look at these error messages. Exported mesh bowtie.mesh is 0.11 times the size of an IMVU avatar and maybe too small. That's because the FBX has picked up on Blender's default scale, and it's given us this error message, which basically tells us that there's a mismatch. But what we know is that the FBX is being exported the correct size relative to Blender and IMVU. So it's just giving us this message saying there may be issues, which there may be if not paying attention to what we're doing, and also material in slot 0, which is the default material that comes with the glasses, that's being overridden with the one that we've created for the bow tie. So config, that's neck 03. Apply changes, there's the bow, meshes, and disable, use blending, keep two-sided, add vertex colors. That's a little bit better. I wonder if it's because no, this is material. Backface culling. Yes, that's why. Because we mirrored the bow, this bit, because we mirrored that, when we joined everything together into a single mesh, it essentially made that duplicate real. But because it's mirrored, it's inverted. So it's not only just mirrored left to right, it's also inverted the faces. So we have to correct these faces that are inverted. So we need to select them. So we can select one face, and then, is it face? No, it's select linked. And that will select the entire bow. And then what we can do is mesh normals flip, and that will re-invert them, or invert them the right way around. Oh, we've still got that bit hidden, so Alt H, or where is it? Dagnabbit. Where's all the hidey stuff? I swear they keep moving things. Oh, there it is. Show hide. Honestly. Reveal hidden. So our mesh is now the right way around. That would probably explain why the vertex painting wasn't working properly. Yes, it does. Dagnabbit. Where's that vertex gone? It's in there somewhere. Let's try disabling that. Oh, it is disabled. Front face only. So basically what we're trying to do is make the areas tonally the same so that we don't get such a hard difference. And it can be a little difficult to discern because we are competing with Blender's viewport shading whilst trying to shade the mesh. Where's wireframe overlay? Wireframe overlay. There it is, wireframe overlay. So now maybe we can see where we're supposed to be painting. Fly inside the mesh. That's a bit better. Right, so let's save that. Yeah, let's save that. Save as. It's number 9. And then export. So deselect everything. Export FBX. Number 9. Right, so that's exported. Back to IMVU. Create another derivable. Accessory. Right, so FBX import, load FBX, we want number 9, blah de blah de blah, root node, 2 bones or mesh, configure, so number 2, 0.01, import, same warnings, import changes, apply changes, config, neck 03. That's better. Oh, that's much better. So that's so it's always worth doing all that fiddling about. Let's just enable vertex colors. Make sure that has worked. Yes, that's worked. So it's always worth doing that little bit of fiddling about, trying to adjust and modify a product or the mesh to make sure that it works properly, because we've gone from that, let's get closer to that without clipping, we've gone from that to that, and that's what we wanted. So save that, save as creator mass 2019 bow tie 2, and then of course just upload, which means, you know, create your icons, do your bits for your marketing. And if you want this for male and female, Don't forget to put the compatible body pattern PID. You want 80, which is female, and then 191, which is for the male. Apply changes, and then that will be usable for both male and female avatars, although it will be listed by default as a female accessory. So there we go, a bow tie with lots of fiddling around. Shouldn't take you that long to do. So I guess we can call it quits there, because we've done 1 hour and 40-ish, but it shouldn't take you 1 hour and 40 to make a bow at all. You should be able to do it quite quickly using the box primitive. So we'll call it quits there, and we shall see you on the next one, where we will be using the bow tie again. Not the bow tie, we'll use the bow, maybe modify it and add it to something else. There's quite a few little things that we might be able to use the bow with. Maybe some more accessories, an armband, a wristband, an ankle band. Anyway, so until the next one, adieu, as they say in Afghanistan.